Right, so there's lots of videos online about getting into first-person view drone flying. A lot of people go about it different ways. Maybe I'm a newbie, so maybe I should talk about how I got into it, see if it inspires other people out there. So I came across, well, first of all, I was looking for a new hobby because I was actually trying to get into motorsport, and basically it didn't work because it's too expensive, and I was looking at doing hill climbing for motorcycle and or maybe car, just getting a hill climbing car. So massively expensive and also quite dangerous. And my fiance doesn't particularly want me to die, so I figured, okay, well, I'll find something else to do that's a little bit less time and sort of fund consuming, so to speak. And basically I decided, okay, well, I can still race cars, but as long as they're remote controlled. So I looked at getting an X-Ray T4 to start racing with, but unfortunately I kind of decided that there was not enough dynamics in that kind of, you know, remote controlled circuit racing, whatever. And then I came across a video on Instagram of a race with drones, and initially this was like August time. I didn't think about it too much. I was like, oh, that's cool, well, yeah. And then when it came to actually trying to find a new hobby, something to, you know, which would teach me about electronics, because I figured I need to learn about electronics for my job as well, so for my day job. It kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh, well, I saw a video of some drones racing. Let me see what that entails. And I typed in YouTube racing drone, and instantly the first video I saw was NERC FPV's Flight of the Year, which if you haven't seen, I suggest you go and watch right now. Go and watch right now. Right now. No, just watch the video first, please. Yeah, so, and I saw that and I was like, for about 10 minutes. And then after that I watched Mr. Steel, and again, like, how did I not hear about this? Because I'm quite a big gamer, so I don't know, it feels like gaming in a way when you're flying FPV, but anyway, that's another story. So I kind of started doing the research to learn how to get into FPV, what it entails, how much it's going to cost, and what I can do with it, whether I can do racing, whether I can do freestyle, whatever. And I made a decision in November that I was going to get myself a drone. Now, I contemplated whether I was going to get a ready-made one or build one, and I decided I was going to build one. At this point, bear in mind, I had no idea what I was going to do, how to build, how to solder. I had no idea what a PDB was. I didn't know what an ESC or an FC or you know, whatever PIDs were. I had no idea what those acronyms meant. So I did about a week's worth of research, basically watched videos, watched people's breakdowns of their builds, and this stuff was like flying straight over my head. Eventually though, things started to sink in after about 2 weeks, and I started learning the relationship between all the components on a specific build, what they do, what they don't do, what's possible, what's not possible, and what really constitutes, you know, a freestyle build, a racing build, and what the differences are, the differences in the size of the frames, 5-inch, 6-inch props. All that stuff came eventually, and I started understanding, and the different things started falling into place, right, to create this big picture. So my first suggestion for anyone considering getting into FPV, do the research, right? Find out how much it costs, because it's not cheap, right? You can get into the hobby relatively cheaply, but in the long run, it's quite expensive, and that's what I've discovered. Luckily, I have quite a lot. I wouldn't say I have quite a bit of expendable income, so I can afford to maintain quite a high-end 5-inch racing drone. But for people who are maybe studying, they don't have a full-time job, it might be difficult to access the sport, the hobby, depending on how seriously they're taking it. So I've with all my hobbies, I've kind of taken the attitude of I'll buy something to grow into, and my intention was to build a racer drone, 5-inch racer drone, and basically learn how to fly it. Now the problem with that is that these drones are not slow, they're quite powerful, they have a lot of power to weight ratio. It's insane. Like my one has like 7 kilos of thrust, with depending on the props I'm using, over 7 kilos, I don't even know, I think it's 6-7 kilos. Anyway, so the important thing is that if you want to get into the hobby, you know how much it costs, get on a simulator. Get on a simulator, because that's the only way you will 100% know, yes, I'm enjoying this, or no, it's not my thing. I used the DRL sim, and I've got to say, you know, I thought I was pretty coordinated in games and things like that. I had an extremely difficult time for the first couple of hours trying to figure out how to control the drone, and even getting through the initial tutorial was very difficult for me. I'm sure there are people out there like the DRL drone is very easy. Well, whatever, you obviously, you know, go and race. Go and race, and yeah, have fun with that. I found it a little bit difficult, so I spent about 10 hours in total doing the tutorials over and over and over and over again, and then basically flying freestyle, learning the relationship between the yaw and the roll, and how to control the altitude of a copter, the speed, etc., etc., and what happens if, you know, you mix controls and you input different combinations on the sticks. Once I was confident that I could fly in the simulator comfortably and, you know, look somewhere and go there, I decided to test hover my Carrera Talon. Now, I test hovered indoors, basically because the weather here is so bad at the moment, I would have had to wait weeks. So it all went well. I think I had a couple of near misses with the telly, but nothing to worry about. And of course, I don't recommend you do this. Don't do it. I did it because I was pretty sure that everything was going to go okay, and it did. And I think I ran 10 batteries just hovering in the living room on the carpet, doing that, slightly playing with the sticks and putting inputs, and it was great, fine. The drone worked fine, and yeah, it was quite a positive experience, I'd say, for me. I'd invested the time and money, obviously, and I didn't want it to be, you know, I didn't want to go outside and break it within the first punch out. And so I invested quite a lot of time preparing for the line of sight flight and the maiden, and it worked out quite well for me, luckily. I actually posted the first FPV flight, well, actually technically it was the third, but the first recorded FPV flight with a GoPro. And as you'll see, you know, for the third flight, it's not bad. In my opinion, it's not bad. I've got control, and that's purely because I took the time to play in the simulator. It's simulator time, simple. Other than that, I'd say don't skimp out on certain things. So I should probably do a rundown of my build. So here's my quad. So this is the Carrera Talon. For simplicity, initially I bought the F4 Magnum stack, which for a beginner, it's good, yeah. The drawbacks are the ESCs on this thing, right? Because they're quite weak. If you get a prop caught on a twig, the MOSFETs are going to burn, and that's exactly what happened to me. But the other cool thing about it is, you know, it's got an F4 controller, XM Plus receiver, and a power switchable VTX. So I can't complain about this. It's my first, you know, package of electronics, and it's serving me well. It's okay. It's got the Emax RS 2306 2750 kV motors, very powerful. Again, race spec, so I'm not too worried about chewing through batteries. I'm running the Avon S props at the moment, but these are gonna come off, I think, because they don't really offer a lot of control. Top speed is there, but the control is not all that great. Runcam Eagle Pro 2 on the front. Great little camera with OSD, really easy and convenient to have. And for the VTX transmitter antenna, I have the Luminia AX2 stubby, basically because it's light and it's compact, and I like it. It's out of the way, I don't have to worry about it. I fitted a low ESR capacitor, 35 volt, 1000 microfarads, I think. Is it microfarads? Yeah. I can't remember now. See, again, acronyms. But yeah, that's a pretty big capacitor there, and but I did that basically after I burnt the MOSFET, because I wanted to sort of try and clean up the power a little bit. But yeah, so there she is. So this build, as it stands now, has set me back £300, and that's the quadcopter alone. That's not, you know, any of the transmitters, the antennas, that kind of stuff. So it's quite a hefty investment to build a quadcopter. Obviously, in order to build it, I actually had to buy some tools. So I got myself a soldering iron. I paid £50 for that, but it's quite a solid quality one. I had some trouble with the solder because I couldn't find rosin core solder, so eventually I used some Draper cheap solder. For the first time I welded everything up, and then the second time luckily I managed to find some Armaton specific drone building solder type thing, and it was much better. The melting temperature was a lot lower than the Draper one I had, so it worked quite well. My solder joints are looking better. They're not as scruffy and they're okay, but obviously there's always room for improvement. So my suggestion is, before you actually solder your drone up, is to practice, right? So practice on a spare circuit board you have, or something that's fried, and just basically make sure that your solder joints are nice and tidy, because if they're not, you run the risk of like basically having weak joints, which can cause havoc if you crash, and shorts and things like that. I was going to say, yeah, I've invested quite a lot in my initial setup. So actually, I think I ended up spending quite a lot of money, purely because I didn't want to buy cheap components or cheap gear. So I think the important thing is, if you're comfortable spending the money, then do so. Because at the end of the day, even if you don't like it, I guess the gear that you do have, if it is quality gear, it will have much better resale value anyway. So for that reason, I purchased an FL Sky Taranis, and not the standard X9D. I got the X9D with the special edition case, and it's got the M9 gimbals, the Hall effect gimbals. I've got to say, I'm glad I made this choice, because I can grow into this radio and it's going to last me a long time. It's a real high quality piece of gear, and it's just awesome. Really, it really suits my hands quite well, and it's quite well balanced. So I'm enjoying using this. Hopefully, when I get the telemetry working, I'm going to set up a Lua script, and so I can change the PIDs from the transmitter itself. And then last but not least, obviously you need FPV goggles, so I got myself the Aeonway Commanders. Now there's some mixed reviews about these, because some people are sort of giving them a bit of grief, but I think they're great. They're great value for money compared to the Fat Sharks. If you think that in order to get the Fat Sharks working you've got to buy them, then you've got to buy the receiver unit, etc, etc, etc. It just becomes a bit of a hefty investment. So I got myself the Commanders, and then I started using them and found that, yeah, they're great. I think for a first set of goggles, you can't go wrong with these, and that's my opinion. And then obviously, because you've got the goggles, you've got to get the antennas. So there you go. Loads of them. you end up buying loads of them, and the Elmway ones that come with them, with the goggles even, this is the cloverleaf one, it's decent. This is a good antenna. I haven't had any problems with it. The patch that comes with them, not so good. You get a bit of sort of noise in the video and that. But I purchased this, which is a Menace Invader. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So this is actually quite a decent patch antenna. I'm really enjoying using it. Basically, my go-to setup at the moment is the cloverleaf and a patch, or the I can't remember what this is called, but this, which is quite a hefty thing to have on your head. Yeah, it's a good antenna. I've also got some left-handed Triumphs, which I don't actually use because I use right-hand polarized antennas. So yeah, you'll be spending a lot of money on antennas to get sort of like a setup that works for you. Next thing that is quite important is the batteries that you're going to be using. I run these bad boys here, the Asahi, however you say it, 1500 milliamp 75C. You get a pack of 5 from quadcopters.co.uk, and for just over £100. You can't really go wrong. They're solid. They can put up with quite a fair bit of abuse. I've had some really bad crashes in these, and they've put up with it, so can't complain. These are good. Get a set. And obviously for charging your batteries you need a charger, so I got the Overlander RC6 VSR. This does up to 8S, and it does a load of different types of battery or types of cells, so it's quite versatile, and it charges at a maximum of 7 amps, 80 watts, which is okay I suppose. But the good thing about it is you can use this in conjunction with the Strix parallel charging board V2, and this is a Joshua Bardwell Spec. It's a very nice board. You can charge up to 10 4S LiPos at the same time, so obviously you can run the RC6 Overlander charger at full 7 amps, and basically you'll charge your cells in about, I don't know, an hour. I've got 5, so it takes about an hour and a half to charge them fully. It's fine by me. And yeah, I really recommend you get one of these because it's such a good piece of kit. And yeah, so that's what I've got. My suggestions, if you're keen on doing this, is don't skimp on the budget, on the parts you're getting, and on the transmitter. Basically, get the best gear that you can possibly afford, and just get it right the first time. And for me, I don't plan on changing anything that I've got, so certainly not the transmitter. There are some things I'd like to change on the Talon, on the drone itself. I think I'm going to switch to Racefly, electronics and software, simply because for racing it looks like the go-to setup. So maybe in the summer we'll see about refitting the Talon with some new electronics. But other than that, that's it. Not much else. You just got to practice, do a lot of research, think about what it is that you want to achieve and what you want to do with the hobby, and obviously consider the laws, because that's quite important, especially now when you've got people flying in the flight paths of planes landing and then matty flipping them. Don't do any of that stuff, so because you'll give all of us a bad name. But yeah, so try and stay on the right side of the law. For example, I don't go beyond the 25 milliwatt limit on the VTX, simply because it's not legal in the UK. So yes, my VTX is capable of much more, but I don't use it. I use the EU firmware on my Taranis, again, because I want to stay within the legal limits, in case I ever get pulled up. So just do a bit of research on the laws in your country of origin, and yeah, you'll be good. To give a shout out, I think I owe Joshua Bardwell a massive amount of credit for getting me into this hobby, because the guy is just a massive tank of knowledge, and I think I must have watched, I think, the majority of his videos by now regarding Betafly and setups, and you know, how to set up a Tyrannus and things like that, and of course other pilots like Mr. Steele. They get massive credit to him for, you know, keeping us entertained, and also for again teaching us a lot, or teaching me specifically a lot about his hardware and why he flies what he does. Yeah, go and check these guys out and subscribe to their channels if you want to know more, because they're a great source of knowledge. Of course, there are other people out there, you just got to find them, and yeah, of course, have fun and take it easy and stay safe.